On this episode, we talk about social media, websites, and
just some other stuff.
Who owns what, who posts where, that type of thing. Everything that you would like to know about what goes on online, we'll talk about right now.
Let's do it.
Atlas All Access starts now.
Token at 0450.
All right.
What's going on, man?
Social media. Welcome back, by the way.
Yeah.
Holy.
I took a week off. It was good, but
It was good. You took 2 weeks off.
Was it 2?
I almost said a bad word there. I guess I could. It doesn't really matter. So I'm so glad to have you back. We're on episode 12.
12. A couple great people, though. A traveler coming through the office, and then Mr. Spees last week.
Yep.
Great information. I love both of them.
Management and stuff, yeah.
Absolutely.
I think it went well.
So we're talking about websites. And information that we can find online.
Mm-hmm.
Good, bad, and different. Let's kind of weigh through what we see.
So I think it's important to go back and kind of let's go back 14 years.
Sure.
All right, just because that's familiar to me and that's when I started 14 years ago. There was no Facebook, right?
Nope.
There was barely LinkedIn.
Sure.
LinkedIn was barely a thing.
Probably just starting somewhat.
Just starting. No Twitter, no Instagram, no Snapchat. All we had was this awesome, and I use awesome in the most sarcastic way possible, forum called Delphi.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about this and some other people that have been around this business for a while.
Yes.
And but I have no idea what a Delphi forum was.
Every once in a while, I'll get an email update that somebody has posted in the Delphi forums again.
So they still exist.
They still exist. It's like a chat room almost, like the old AOL chat rooms, maybe.
Okay.
Kind of. If I'm not mistaken, and Kay, if you're watching,
I was thinking Kay. Yeah, I was gonna say we talked about it with her on.
Yeah, here. I think TravCon started there.
Okay.
Like the idea for TravCon maybe was born in the Delphi forums.
Okay.
I think. I don't know. Kay, you might be able to tell us if that's the case or not. I think that's true, though.
Okay.
I vaguely remember that back in the day. So, and there are still some names that from the Delphi forums that still show up. Recruiters still in the industry that are working for different companies now or whatever.
Yeah.
So it really was not awesome though. Like there was no law. It was just name calling and it wasn't awesome.
Sure.
It just wasn't.
So we've moved to that to obviously the big one now is Facebook. Yeah. And there's probably 10 or 15 major sites on there. Gypsy Nurse, Travel Talk, Travel Nurse Central, and those kind of things. What are some of the big differences between those sites? Like who owns those? Where do they come from? And those kind of things. So
props to Candy Treff for kind of starting this whole thing, right?
Yep.
Starting the Gypsy Nurse back 5-6 years ago.
Yep.
Right? And that the Gypsy Nurse Facebook group, and then she had a website at one time. That kind of started. That's probably the biggest one, right?
Sure.
It really is. There's 65,000 members, I think. It's an enormous number.
Sure.
Then the most recent one, Traveler Talk, ran by our friend Andrew Craig.
Yep.
And he also travels for us too. But he's been a traveler now for a little while, and just wanted a forum that was a little bit different.
Yep.
And so that's what he did with Traveler Talk. Traveler Talk now, I don't know if you know this, I don't think I've told you, is now the exclusive provider for Atlas All Access.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So there you go. Not because we chose that or Andrew did. That's just kind of how it worked. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
So anyway, but thank you to Andrew for having and admins for having a really open forum. There's great content out there. Great content.
Sure. And I think think something to look at on those content is, and we've touched on this a few times, is they are almost open forums. So you can say what you want, and anybody's information that they want to put out there can be put out there and on there. So I think the big thing is take everything with a grain of salt.
Sure.
You know, check references on things that people say, and it is not law that somebody posts something on Facebook is not truth to the end.
Everything on the internet is true
on there. So
that's what I thought.
But there are pages that are owned by companies. Is that right?
That's true, and like I'll be the first to admit we have our own Facebook groups. The Patty Hinks, Patty Travels, runs the RV Travelers Facebook group. But it's right there in the description, right? I mean, we've got a number of them. Aaron Blumwell is a recruiter for us out in Colorado, runs a very large, very open Facebook group for Colorado nurses. And open, I mean, the other recruiters, agencies, whatever. That's, you know, any travelers in the Denver area are part of that group, and they get together and they do beer tours and hikes and skiing.
And Christy Birchler and I started a St. Louis page 2 or 3 years ago. Thanks for Rich taking me to St. Louis on a couple meet and greets that we've done and stuff, and with the Barnes conversion that's going on right now, man, we get 10-15 people a day that are trying to get on there and seeing people you know, look at those and converse with other travelers has been really cool. So I think you just have to know that somebody has a motive behind everything of starting a page, and if it's a company or some recruiters or something like that, you know, I think another question is there's moderators on all these groups and what they allow and don't allow on there. I think when you get on there, read the descriptions. All of them do a pretty good job of having a description of, hey, what is allowed, what's not allowed, if you can post pay packages, how you're supposed to post pay packages and those kind of things.
Can you post jobs there, or is there a separate group for jobs? Like generally some of those groups have that group and then a jobs group right alongside them, right?
Absolutely. So you know, read those descriptions. It'll give you a good idea of maybe who owns it, who's running it, maybe who the moderators are if you have questions on what you can and cannot do if you're you know, you're another recruiter or a traveler and you want to post something. You know, some pages won't let you post about housing. They want you to go to their housing page, or you know, a jobs page where you're posting that, and then a basic information page where you can ask, you know, some more random generalized questions.
So if you go find that member section, the admins show up at the top. And there's no such thing as a dumb question, right? If you're new, I would definitely ask those questions.
For sure. And then obviously filter and double check your answers that you're getting to make sure you know, they're valuable information on there as well.
So another good group that, especially for someone starting, for a travel nurse just starting out, Travel Nurse Newbies, which is owned by Kay Slane, who also runs Highway Hypodermics.
Absolutely.
And that kind of segues really well into websites. So generally the websites out there are going to have a Facebook group along with them, right? Generally, but then there's going to be a website that has even more information, where it's more static information, where the Facebook page might be more dynamic information. So Highway Hypodermics, been around for a very long time. I would say probably the gold standard in our industry when it comes to a informational type of website.
Absolutely. Very good information on there. Another one that I think you're more familiar than I am on is Blue Pipes.
Blue Pipes.
Tell me a little bit more about Blue Pipes.
Kyle Schmidt has really he's created something special there. So I've talked to Kyle a number of times from the industry, not in the industry right now, but really understands what a nurse is looking for. So we were one of the early adopters 5 years ago. He has Joint Commission approved skills checklist, resume builder, application, all of that, and there's a list of companies on there that accept that in lieu of theirs. So you could go to Blue Pipes, fill out their information, send it to Adam, for example, and then we would accept that as for submittal purposes and stuff.
Correct.
That's, so if you want to test a company out and you don't want to fill out a whole bunch of information, go out to Blue Pipes, fill that information out one time, you get a PDF of that information. That once you fill it out, and then send that out to whichever recruiter you're talking to.
I've had one traveler in 3 years I've actually had send me like his whole profile from Blue blue pipes, and it was pretty cool. Obviously, it wasn't something that I could directly submit to a hospital. I had to kind of make it my own way and everything. But it did make it pretty easy to kind of facilitate the process on there. So
yeah, it's a great. He does some blog pieces too. He used to podcast, but he doesn't anymore. So
maybe he should.
Maybe he should. Maybe he should come to Omaha and be on our podcast.
Absolutely. That would be a fun interview. I've never met him.
I would dig it.
I would dig it. Maybe we'll have to talk to him about that.
We'll call him.
So what else? What other pages that might be out there?
So once again, you had mentioned pages owned by companies. There are a couple: Travel Nurse Central, Travel Nursing Central.
Yes.
One is owned by a company here in Omaha. The other is owned by was just absorbed by one of the very large publicly traded companies just recently. So all that information is out there. You can go find it. It's do searches through Traveler Talk, Gypsy Nurse, who owns X. And you'll find it.
Sure, absolutely.
Not that isn't good information. They still have tons of good information on there for like state licensures and things like that. There's review sections for hospitals and agencies, but again, owned by an agency. So just understand the information you're getting, when you go out there.
Yep, absolutely.
Traveler Talk is another one. Going back to Andrew again. Andrew's website, he just launched that not too long ago.
Sure.
So it's kind of a work in progress, but he's definitely blogging from there. Everything that he does filters through the website now.
Yep.
So I think I understand what he's trying to do there. It's going to take some time, right?
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. Great information.
Yeah. So I think the moral to this is the information's there.
Tons of information. Like you said, from 14 years ago to now, what we do have is light years above, and awesome information. Just fact check stuff, or take the information that you're seeing there and ask your recruiter how that applies to your company. We all do the same thing in the industry, but we all do things maybe a little bit differently on the back end. So seeing something on Facebook and saying, well, my company doesn't do this, or my company does this differently, or why do some companies have sign-on bonuses or referrals or everything like that. Take that information before you accuse your company. They might just have a different stance on how they do that, or how they spend their marketing money, or how they pay out travel bonus or anything like that. So before accusing somebody of information that you see, take that information, have that conversation. That's going to help you grow your relationship with your recruiter. Is having they're tough conversations sometimes, but it's going to make you a better traveler at the end of the day.
So then so we've gone from the Delphi forums now to Facebook and websites. Like, what's the next step, do you think? Is it Instagram and Snapchat?
Well, I think it's Instagram and Snapchat, but I really think the next step, and you and I have had small conversations about this, is going to these websites of where you take out the recruiter. There's been a few of them that are going to automate the system where you can just pick and choose the jobs, and there's no recruiter or company involved on there. I think that's what people are trying to go through. I just don't understand of what's going to happen when something goes bad, of who's going to be in your corner, who's not going to be in your corner.
That's a good question.
On there. So, I think you're right on Instagram. Some of those kind of things are going to be some big forums that are going to start. There's going to be other pages or other, tweets and stuff that you can follow along with. But I think that's what they're going to try to do, is try to push out companies of what they do on a day-to-day basis. And I just don't see the function of that working, but we'll see.
I don't either. But that's why I think that the more personal connection through something like Snapchat or Instagram really is, in my opinion, the next step here.
Sure.
It's that next level.
Sure.
And that as Instagram and Snapchat fight for market share, they both become very different in their own ways. Instagram with the swipe up, but you have to have a certain number of followers before that happens. Snapchat just changed again. I know my wife uses it a lot, just like with her family and stuff. Horribly frustrated with the new update. I don't know. I don't use it that much.
I don't either.
I think that's the next step. It's just interesting to watch these two battle it out for market share at this point.
Yeah.
And so I love Instagram. I think it's fun. I have mine. I have an Atlas one, and then I have two other personal ones that are my own little nerdy side hobby.
Sure.
Right, and so but I love it. I think it's great. It's a great way to connect.
Yep.
If nurses are out there, like we found some so far, I think that really is the next step.
Awesome, great information.
You need to get on Instagram.
I know. I just got Netflix, so Instagram's a big step for me, I think.
You just got Netflix?
Yeah. Can we delete that out?
Wow. Wow. All right. Well, I don't know if we can keep going. Adam, thanks for. Now, are you gone next week?
No, I will be back. I will be back next week. I will be out of town the rest of the week.
Adam is out of town with our friend Chris Madrigal. By the time you watch this, he will be snowboarding.
Up at Mount Bachelor in Oregon.
Snowboarding, actually?
Yeah, actually snowboarding.
For the first time?
Yeah, I've dabbled in it on some small hills.
That's right.
Around here. So, like, this is, I always, I'll get crud from Mr. Madrigal about saying bucket list, but this has been a huge bucket list thing of mine.
Right.
As I always tell my travelers to have theirs. And this is like big mountain out in California,
yeah.
Oregon. Like, I've never been to California, Oregon, so
nice.
I'm super excited to get out there and check something off my list.
All right. Well, we'll talk about it next week then.
I can't wait.
All right.
All right. See you guys. Have a great week.